Recently, I covered Spider-Man 2000 on the N64, and that game felt fantastic to play through. Ever since then, I've been on a huge Spider-Man kick, and I thought, what better way to indulge in my Spider-Man interest than to look at a sequel to that old Spider-Man game on the PS1, Spider-Man Enter Electro. This sequel was made only for the PS1 this time around, and while I don't typically like to emulate games for the sake of authenticity when it comes to my channel, this was the only way I was able to play it. So, kick back, grab a snack, and give that subscribe button a smack while I take you through this wonderful retro PlayStation gaming experience. The controls in Spider-Man Enter Electro remain exactly the same as the first game. We've got all the punches, kicks, and cool web shooter mechanics from that game, although the punch and kick animations have changed a bit from what they used to be. If you want to see a more in-depth look at the controls you'll be using for this game, do feel free to check out my last Spider-Man video once you finish this one. The level design in this game, however, has taken things up a notch from how they used to be. In Spider-Man 2, we have rooftop levels like the first game, but we also have levels that blend rooftops and street level exploration together. Finally, we get to explore what feels more like a real city instead of only being able to jump from roof to roof. There are plenty of fun missions taking place on the ground, the roofs, and in a blend of both, which makes this game really feel a bit more interesting than the last. We also have many missions taking place inside of buildings, of course, but overall, the second game's indoor levels felt much more interesting than that of the first game. Rather than just moving from point A to point B, we have more objectives the first game never tackled, more interesting enemy types to fight, as well as a few more hostage-saving missions which I just personally love to play. Nothing quite like crawling along the ceiling to get the drop on bad guys and save innocent civilians in the process. Throughout the whole game, I just kept thinking to myself that the level structure here has been much improved from game number 1, and it really kept me involved with the story the whole time around. While these levels are much improved from the first game, I would say the boss fights are where the development team really found their chance to shine. See, in the first game, most bosses were able to be beat pretty easily by webbing them up, getting your hits in, and then jumping out of their striking distance. In Enter Electro, however, each boss encounter has unique mechanics required to finish the fight, and not one boss can be beaten by only using your webs and punches. First we have Shocker, who functions mostly the same as the bosses of old, but there are boxes tied to the ceiling of this warehouse that we can use to pull into him, dealing massive damage. Our second boss here is more of an encounter than a real fight. We need to get to this train, and Sandman isn't trying to let us do that so easily. Sandman puts up these giant sand walls, and our objective is to throw these water barrels at it in order to take down the wall and catch up to the train. All of this is taking place while Sandman himself is trying to take us out, making this a really fun game of keep away while you're swinging towards your objective. I really like this mission. Boss number 3 is Hammerhead, and boy did this guy give me some trouble before I figured out exactly how to fight him. Hammerhead will do a mix of shooting at you with his Tommy gun and charging at you head first for big damage. If you can get him to charge into a wall, he'll stun himself and you'll be able to use that stun as a window to get in some damage. The thing is, bullets are difficult to dodge, and there's no good way to tell when he'll actually charge at you with these camera controls, making it really hard to get his health down before he takes you out. What I took too long to discover in this boss fight though was that you can take his gun out of his hands with your web pull ability, forcing him to charge straight at you. You can use this to get him stunned on walls, or simply attack him after his charge while he runs back to pick up his gun. This was a pretty sweet fight in my opinion. Our fourth boss fight is versus the Lizard. First we need to run up to this computer in order to complete the Lizard's cure that Dr. Connors was working on before accidentally transforming into the Lizard again and wrecking his entire lab. Once that's done, we need to run back and forth in his lab, picking up and shooting these cures into him in order to stun him for a while we get our hits in. This fight was pretty unique compared to the other ones, and I thought that it was really interesting the way you had to avoid the Lizard completely and collect special pickups in order to actually stun him and get your damage through. Our fifth boss fight is Sandman once again, but this time we'll actually be fighting him. The basic loop of this fight is to put up the water pressure with this valve here, and then lure him into a spot where we can release the water straight onto him and get some hits in. I had a lot of trouble with this fight until I realized it's faster to shoot the valves with your webs to activate them rather than turning them by hand. After finding that out, this fight went pretty smoothly for me. Our final boss encounter takes place in 2 phases. We finally find Electro in this space exhibit room of a museum, and in order to hit him, we have to climb up to the top floor, jump to him, and hit him a couple times before he knocks us down. Then we rinse and repeat. What I found was very useful though was jumping at him, getting a couple of hits, and then jumping back to the top floor where his electric blast won't damage us but still knocks us down. From here we can jump at him again and essentially loop this until he goes down. Halfway through this fight he activates some lasers as well, but they never actually got in my way, so I wouldn't really consider this the second phase of the fight. Just an extra thing to look out for really, but even that is kind of a stretch. They were pretty useless. Finally though, we have a rooftop fight versus Electro that is quite simple but very cool as a climax to this game. Firstly, we need to take out these electric generators so that they'll backfire when Electro zaps them, giving us a nice window to deal some damage. Halfway through his health bar, Electro will fly back up to this central tower of power in order to heal himself, so we'll need to destroy some extra generators over here as well. Once the tower is taken care of though, it's as easy as getting Electro to stun himself over and over to deplete his entire health bar. While none of these bosses are actually very difficult once you've figured out the unique part to fighting them, having to find that unique piece of the fight was very entertaining, and puts the boss fights way higher up in the way of enjoyment than the bosses of the first game did. I really like that the devs decided to try some new stuff here. It made a world of difference to me. Aside from the regular story mode, we also have costume changes in this game, which is to be expected coming from the first one. We have all of the costumes the first game had here, with the added benefit of the Spider-Man 2099 outfit having better colors, which I mentioned was a problem I had with the suit in the first game, as well as the amazing Bagman making an official appearance outside of being just a cheat code like he was in the first game. On top of all these old costumes, we have the same amount of costumes added brand new to this game, bringing our alternative costume total to a whopping 19 costumes. We've got a Battle Damage Classic Spidey suit, Spider Phoenix, Prodigy, Dusk, the Insulated suit, Alex Ross red and white versions of a suit, Venom 2, and a Negative Zone suit. Almost all the suits in this game have a mix and match of different abilities you can play around with, but brand new to this game as well is the ability to customize whichever suit with any 3 abilities that you want. This is so cool to me, as it lets me use whichever power-ups I want to use while playing through as the Scarlet Spider, my personal favorite Spider-Man suit of all time. Having played this game on PS1 rather than the slightly lacking N64 version I did in the first game, I was able to watch all of these beautiful cutscenes as I played through, and boy were they a treat. Stan Lee has a ton of narrative voice lines again, Spidey and his villains all have some pretty good lines, and okay, this might have been a product of the fact that I was emulating this game, but there were a few times where characters just didn't finish their lines. Like, listen to Spider-Man giving his one-liner at the end of this mission where you save a runaway plane from blowing up.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be careful gathering your carry-on baggage as items in the overhead compartments may have
And if you thought that line didn't finish because the mission just ended too quickly, listen to this line from a cutscene later in the game.
Those red tracking lasers must be giving my position to the drones. If I don't take them offline, I'll never get to Dr. Watts' lab.
Again, I'm pretty sure it's something going wrong with the emulation of this game, but I had a good laugh every time it happened. All said and done, Spider-Man Enter Electro is a fantastic sequel to Spider-Man 2000. I enjoyed my time with this game as much, if not even more than I did the first game. My only real issue with this game is that it was made for PS1, the console that doesn't have any analog sticks on its controllers, and in order to get a true experience of the game, I too played it using only a D-pad to move around. If you're interested in playing some old-ass Spider-Man games, I highly recommend these two. They're fun, they're interesting, and they're most definitely relics of their time. If you like this video, maybe check out my last Spider-Man video if you haven't already, and if you just like retro games like I do, there's an entire playlist on screen of all the N64 games I've looked at previously. Until next Friday, where I introduce something special for having hit 2,000 subscribers on this channel, that's my time. My name's Myloe, and I'm out.